Dear guests, now the final main session features a panel session hosting Adel Al Redha, Chief Operations Officer of Emirates, Tom Isherwood, Partner, Digital and Analytics at Quantum Black, AI by McKinsey, and Aysar Yousef, Microsoft UAE Data and AI Lead, moderated by Laura Buckwell from Euronews.
Well, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to our final panel discussion of the day. Here, of course, at the Dubai Assembly for Generative AI, where we are going to get some critical thinking going now around how generative AI can fuel growth in aviation, ladies and gentlemen. And what an impressive panel lineup we have here for you today. As you can see, yes, we have Adel Al Redha, Chief Operations Officer at Emirates. Very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for taking the time out for us here today. We also have Aysar Yousef, Data and AI Lead at Microsoft. Very warm welcome. And Tom Isherwood, Senior Partner at Quantum Black AI by McKinsey. A very warm welcome. Well, in order to get our audience up to date and to get a sort of better understanding as to where we are right now in terms of AI, generative AI, within the aviation industry, get us up to speed on exactly where we are now. Adel, please do start us off.
Thank you. I think we are excited on the advancement in technology and the quantum computing that's given us the opportunity to do many things that we have not been doing it in the past. But what's happening so far is that we are dealing with this matter and taking advantage of technology in a fragmented manner. We're talking about AI and leaving behind the generative AI. Data analysis has been there since many years. It's not something new. We've been doing it for all the time, analyze data, predict our expectation on different systems. But we want now to go to our customer and use generative AI to give the customer the experience they deserve, and at the same time provide companies the efficiency they've been asking for and looking for. If I ask the audience today, how many of you have used an automated telephone answering from many companies, and how many of you have been satisfied with that? From my situation, out of 10 experience, maybe I was satisfied with 1. Most of the companies have implemented that to gain benefit from reducing resources, but giving zero experience or satisfaction to the customer. If I use artificial intelligence to host companies' data, and I have an interactive session with somebody simulating some part, an element of the human brain that we can communicate to, look for the information, and give me the answer I want, instead of keeping me on to left and right on some information that I don't need. And there where we need to move to with generative AI. In Emirates, we have taken that step, and we are experiencing and will be displaying, hopefully, in the month of November, how we will do a step change in training our cabin crew from a traditional trainer to using generative AI and delivering a very complicated training to our cabin crew. I'm sure serving customers cannot be more complicated than establishing a training syllabus. So, and here where I want to look to our technological partners, not to be selfish in trying to develop a system that suits them and generate the maximum revenues. Look for systems that, number one, provide the high level of customer service, and secondly, the efficiency to the company. So looking back to customizing whatever application we're going to be developing in the future based on generative AI and artificial intelligence. Combine the two power together and you will get the best of both worlds.
Very exciting indeed. And as you said, customer experience really is everything, and something, of course, that Emirates very much prides itself on, and rightly so, of course, as well. Over to Tom. Tell us a bit about, set the scene for us a little bit as well in terms of the aviation industry.
Sure. When we look at the aviation industry, as Adel said, AI is not new for the aviation industry. What is relatively new, though, is GenAI. And so, in the past, we used AI for prediction, for analysis. Now it's also at how can we use AI for generation, for creation. And when we look at this, we see two big opportunities for aviation companies. First is in significantly improving the customer experience. And second is in significantly increasing the productivity of employees. When we look at what you can do with customer experience, the sky's the limit, but just to think a bit about it, you can reimagine entirely the booking experience so that you can give suggestions, ideas. You can actually answer questions on the spot about the itinerary that maybe people would otherwise have to call up a call center to understand. That could be a much better experience. That could also lead to revenue growth as you actually inspire people and give them ideas they didn't have to begin with. You could think about improving that experience when there's a problem, when there's a flight delay or something else. How do you actually meet them in that moment instead of giving them an automated message and a call center they can't reach? You can also even think about actually how you get better data about your customers using AI too. So there's a lot of ways that generative AI can improve customer experience. The other side, though, is equally important, even if it's a bit less flashy, which is it'll improve the productivity of employees, whether they are in your IT shop, where we've seen coding co-pilots can double the productivity of programmers, whether it's in your call center, where again you could generate an automated customer profile for anybody that calls in, which could then improve your ability to actually meet them where they are, or whether it's even with maintenance, in operations, and actually giving people the ability to have, again, an AI assistant or agent that can actually support them as they're having to make decisions when they're actually doing hands-on maintenance or operations work. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for GenAI in aviation.
And at the end of the day, it is that seamless customer experience that everyone wants. And I was also reading that the figures, are shocking in terms of passenger growth that are set to hit 4 billion by next year and then double that by 2036. There's a lot to do, and obviously AI is going to be a solution. Aysar, over to you.
Well, no, absolutely. I think the opportunity is massive, and of course the risks and associated with the opportunity so far, in my opinion, remains to be also an area that needs to be looked at. Yet, I think the benefits that are expected from this would be quite remarkable. And within the aviation industry, I think, as Tom and Mr. Adel mentioned, there is the customer-facing part, which is where the passenger impacting the journey of the passengers, and whether before, after, or during the travel itself. And then the back office efficiencies that generative AI would be bringing. And in my opinion, I think the opportunity now is to make sure that at least there is an acceleration on how we can reap the benefits of GenAI, because I think at the moment there is lots of potential opportunities that we can look into, especially when it comes to aviation, and how best we can manage where the technology is today, at least to build the pipeline and the future for how the aviation would look like in the coming 18, 24 months. Because despite the fact that within the past 11 months or 10 months since OpenAI released ChatGPT in the market, the maturity level of the technology has evolved tremendously, which means that there is a train that needs, or a plane that we need everybody to be on, and make sure that we are able to catch that as soon as possible, even if not into a customer-facing related use cases, but ideally in areas where we are building the momentum and the capabilities into the future as well. And that would have lots of pull, I would say, from different parties, especially within the aviation industry. And Emirates is no stranger to the innovation. I mean, one of the most well-respected brands across the world, and AI and data is in the DNA of what Emirates is doing day in and day out. I'm working with Emirates for the past, I don't know how many years, and I know exactly what is being done there. So I think this poses itself as a golden opportunity to capture the momentum and build on top of what have been built so far. In my opinion, this is going to be a complementary story on top of a well-established foundation that the aviation industry have, but Emirates in particular have been pioneering on that domain and be able to build on top of that gradually.
Adel, I wanted to stay with customer experience for a while, just for a moment. So how exactly do you envision Emirates Airlines' sort of role within this? And not just giving an efficient, but a truly seamless, more personalized experience. Is there anything that you can sort of tell us as to what is on the horizon?
Before I tell you Emirates' vision, I think let's look on today's realities and look who's the gainers and who's the losers. During the pandemic, many companies have gone toward cost reduction and cost saving to survive. Maybe they have survived for a short term, but they're dying now because they went and cut down on the level of product innovations and investment on customer experience, on what we can offer the customer. If you ignore the customer element in any business you do, it's a short gain but long-term death. You are digging your graveyard. That's exactly what you're doing. And many companies today, they are realizing, I'm talking the airline business, the mistake they have done by going after cost and ignoring the customer experience. Now we need to take the customer experience in a different level, and a level that what the customer want. Everybody wants to do things in his own. They want to interact seamlessly in their activities. 5 years ago, maybe we were dreaming to get 5% or 10% of our online booking done directly by the customers. Today, with the technology advancement and availability of many of these devices, we're seeing more than 50% of our customers do their business direct with Emirates. Not too far in the next future, we will see maybe close to 80% of our customers want to do that. So we need to equip them, and we need to reduce our costs. The different type of people or activity, when you go to an airport and you want to do checking in, why you want to deal with somebody is asking a question, where's your passport, where's your ID, here is a boarding card, and here is a tag. You want to do that seamlessly, but at the same time, you want somebody to give you the answer. Can I take this in my bag? Am I allowed to take this visa? Am I allowed to do this one? If you are able to interact seamlessly with a system that gives you that information in much more faster, but more importantly, much more accurate manner than a human being, wouldn't that what you want?
Exactly.
And this is what really we are going toward, and that's what we are building on the future to give to our customers.
And it's marrying those two elements, isn't it? The technology with that human element and making sure that that human element is still around, exactly. Tom, over to you. Tell us a little bit more about the power of advanced analytics and some of the challenges that you've seen within the industry, and also some of the solutions that you've managed to provide at Quantum Black AI by McKinsey.
Sure. Look, one of the exciting things about this is that it's not just a technology that can help us to analyze data better, but it's also technology that can help us to fill the gaps in the data that we have, or take in much broader swaths of data. And for me, the aviation industry is an interesting example of this. The reason why is, if you compare this to banking or to telecommunications, it's harder to know your customer as well in aviation. You know, if you're a bank, you have a relationship with your bank for a decade. When you have a phone, you have your phone number with that telco company for a decade or more. They can really learn a lot about you. Now, for aviation companies, you can get the same sort of thing with your loyalty programs. I mean, Skyward's obviously the best example of that, probably. But what about all the people that aren't frequent flyers with you? What about the ones that just fly once or twice a year? It's very hard to get to know them as well. If you can't know them as well, it's hard to help them or to serve them in the best way. And so for me, think about just one example of this is you can use generative AI to put together almost immediate kind of customer profiles, so that when someone has a delayed flight and they call your call center, you don't have to spend 5 minutes on the call center trying to figure out who this person is or what's their situation or what's their problem, but you could actually have a GenAI kind of summarized customer profile for the agent in the call center to be able to immediately understand, here's your situation, your flight was delayed, you're traveling with your kids, you've got a connection, let me tell you what I think I can do for you, right? And that's a very different thing than what we have today. And for me, that's just an example of kind of what the power of AI could be here. And it highlights I'll say one last thing about what this highlights for me is that in Quantum Black, we talk a lot about hybrid intelligence, because we think the real potential for AI is not just big foundational models with apps built on top that run in the background in an automated way. The real power is when you can combine this with human intelligence and human interaction, and make people, for instance, in the call center, much more productive, much more effective, and frankly, actually let them do the part of their job that they probably enjoy the most too, which is solving problems for people, not looking things up on a bunch of systems that maybe don't connect. So I think this is really going to be transformative at multiple layers.
Aysar, speaking of challenges, we heard earlier that privacy is going to be the #1 challenge, as well as many others. But what is your take on that, and how can we overcome these privacy issues, and what else is there that you're finding a challenge at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think privacy and security is a big concern when it comes to the adoption of generative AI technologies in general. And it's a common concern that we hear from multiple industries, of course, including aviation. And the challenge definitely is from the fact that you're handing over a piece of data to a model to process and then generate some content based on that. And that ambiguity, whether that data is being used or leaked for other organizations, and infringement of IP is a big concern. And this sometimes make it a little bit more difficult for organization to even scale and adopt the technology because of the concerns around that, especially when we talk about use cases where there's a customer-facing or brand impact with that. I think from that angle, there would be a combination of things that needs to be done. And this is not only a technology aspect. There is a technical part of that from technology vendors. And this is where organizations and the industry should be looking at how the technology vendors are providing those technologies, how they put the guardrails into the technology itself to protect the IP of different customers who are using the technology, and make sure that there is no potential challenge from that angle. So this is one angle, but at the same time, this might not be even satisfactory for lots of industries, including aviation, where those guardrails as well needs to be, in a way, flexible in the hand within the airline to be able to put those guardrails and security constructs to make sure that there is no potential also leakage for that. There is the part from the technology vendor, there's part from the customer. But there's one significant part that adds to the formula, is the regulatory bodies. And I think this is an area that collectively something that we will need to work on. I'm not talking about the technology vendors or the industry, but also the government bodies. And I know that this is something that is coming new to the market, and there are lots of initiatives from the UAE government around that area, how we build the regulatory constructs around how we manage generative AI across aviation and other industries as well. So I think it's a triangular solution on this particular problem, and it needs the collaboration from the different parties, not necessarily only from one single party, because the regulatory body, the tech vendors, as well as the customers, all of them would be contributing to that. And as earlier mentioned, this is a new technology. There are lots of learnings that we are capturing as part of the process. I think we need to be probably cognizant of the fact that we are all learning, including the technology vendors on this journey, where we're trying how we can bring the best out to the market, yet there are lots of great feedback and challenges we are hearing from the market, and this pushes us to go and think out how best we can bring in the technology that our customers can use. And to Mr. Adel's point at the beginning, definitely it's not just about designing the technology where we can make the maximum profit out of it. We want to make sure that our customers can use it, because if we guarantee you use it, the profit will come as a consequence for that.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that privacy and security is always going to be an issue to some degree going forward. You're never going to sort of not have those issues, but it just depends on sort of building trust and the right technology going forward, right?
Absolutely. There's a maturity curve that is being built, and the technology is getting advanced. The regulatory constructs are being advanced on that direction, and we are evolving on that front. It will remain to be a concern, not only with generative AI. I mean, when you talk about security and data privacy across everything that we're doing today, there is always that element. And with GenAI, I think it is being magnified a bit because of the fact that you're literally handing over data to some sort of a model at the back end. You'd be concerned what will gonna happen with my data, especially if it's a corporate data sets that we're using here.
Well, Adel, sustainability and environmental concerns, of course, are very much in focus right now across all industries, and very exciting. We've got the lead up to COP28 here as well. However, it's been said that generative AI has the power to solve many long-term challenges. I've been reading here, pioneering sustainable practices such as reducing fuel burn and carbon emissions through smart navigation, for example. A very good example there. So what exactly is Emirates Airline doing in order to sort of help a greener and more responsible aviation industry?
Yeah, I think technology will play a major role in providing solutions to some of the initiatives we've been thinking about in the past. Using alternate fuel to burn, that's one solution which will not be there tomorrow. It will take its own time when it becomes available across the globe. But one of the things that has been an issue within Europe, here, America, everywhere, is our ability to manage the flow or the route of the aircraft in a more efficient manner. There's nothing worse in polluting the air than when you arrive to within a close vicinity of an airport and you have to hold for half an hour, 15 minutes, burning a fuel that has been burned for no use other than just because we did not manage the flow of that aircraft from its departure until its arrival. There are tools now that can be enhanced by the application of AI and application of better technology for us to do it. Now, we are an airline. We cannot do that by ourselves. We need the air navigational service providers. We need Eurocontrol to engage in doing that. And some of these organizations are hesitant to move in that purely because of the investment required to be put forward. And they should put this aside and think on the investment in long term that's gonna provide the global by reducing less or by consuming or burning less fuel. That's where we need to go. And today, technology, available, applications available, but need to be adapted and implemented in a much more better way and coordinated manner.
And yeah, so it's getting AI to detect these different routes to minimize fuel consumption is absolutely genius, and every step towards those greener goals is essential, and that's a very, very interesting part there. Moving over to Tom very quickly, let's talk a little bit more about collaboration and how airlines and technology providers can collaborate further, as well as with regulatory bodies as well, in order to to ensure the responsible and safe use as well, of course, as generative AI, which we touched on a little earlier as well.
Sure, look, this is a space where collaboration is really important because nobody knows exactly what the path forward is going to be like. And the only way you can figure it out is by getting your hands dirty, working with other people, and trying different things with the right guardrails to make sure that those things that you try don't have unintended consequences, right? And when I think about this, I see companies right now doing a couple of things. Some of them are very excited because the C-suite has played around with ChatGPT and wants to figure out how can they make this relevant for their company. Some of them are nervous about the regulatory side and think they can't do it, especially in this region because of whether it's data sovereignty laws or questions about cloud or things like this. But my encouragement to our clients is that this is going to fundamentally reshape in the next 10 years the way that we all interact with technology. I mean, you could even argue maybe language will be the new user interface for everything. This is the same, we used to have DOS and then we got Windows. I mean, this is this kind of shift. We have Windows now. In the future, maybe we're literally just using language to interface. And so if you're not starting to go down that journey, as uncertain as it is and as confusing as it is, and as uncertain as the regulations are and as uncertain as the technology is, if you're not starting to go down that journey, you won't be in a place where you're able to really take full advantage of it 10 years from now. And so, so collaboration is important, trying things out is important, but then I'll tell you the next step is actually the hardest one, because I do see a number of institutions in aviation, also in other industries, that are trying these things out. The next part is actually the hardest, which is going from an interesting pilot or a cool AI toy to something that you can actually roll out broad scale within your organization, and eventually, once we get some of the bugs sorted out around hallucinations, to your customers, more broad scale, right, and more wide scale. And this is hard because this, a pilot you can more or less give to your technology department or your IT department, and they can figure it out. But to really scale something up takes the entire organization, takes the leadership to be fully bought in that it's a priority, and it takes a lot more than just a model or something a solution you can buy off the shelf from a technology vendor. It requires figuring out how you're going to embed it into your processes, how you're going to change how your employees work, how you're going to get their buy-in when right now they're scared about being replaced, how you're going to get their buy-in to be able to deploy it. And that's all hard because it's not a technology challenge anymore. Now it's a human challenge. Now it's a people challenge. And so just to recap, I think we all need to be getting our hands dirty. The only way we can do that is with collaboration, with regulators, with technology vendors. But that the real hard thing is then going beyond that initial pilot to something that you can actually roll out across the organization.
Aysar, finally, your final question before we wrap up and give our sort of key takeaways today. Let's expand on collaboration and the regulatory sort of issues as well, and what needs to be done to sort of drive a sort of safer space in the industry.
I think the first word that comes to my mind is reusability. I think we need to be a bit sustainable there as well, in terms of that this is not something that we will have to reinvent the wheel every day around, and we need to capture the, let's say, the evolution of regulatory frameworks, risk frameworks that have been introduced by multiple bodies already. Comes to my mind, for example, the National Institute of Standards in the US. They have issued a risk framework around generative AI a few months ago. We took that from Microsoft's point of view, and then we kind of added to what potentially we can put on top of that framework. We've worked closely with the UAE government on looking at the generative AI regulatory as well, and we're taking a lot of those experiences that we have accumulated from our previous interactions from other governments and the industry. And in my view, again and again, this is something that everybody is required to be contributing to, because there are specific requirements that would come from the industry or come from the regional impact of how things needs to be run with a certain countries or regions, and this will help shape those regulatory frameworks. And my advice at this stage would be to get ourselves exposed and immersed a little bit on those areas, because it is a kind of a good area to talk about, yet the execution on it is a little bit vague and difficult, because it's all about policies and how best to set the policies. If I look at Emirates' point of view, you will need definitely, which I know that you're working on the policy setting within the organization, whereas from Microsoft, we try to look at this at a global level, and then I think this is where we will need to be grounded as well with Emirates to how we can help bring that global view to the local view, or the other way around. So I think it's a collaborative approach remains to be, and in my view, and picking on Tom's comment, like this is what will shape the future for us. So I think we need to be part of that. Otherwise, we don't want this future to be controlled by someone else.
Thank you so much. I wanted to get to my last question for Mr. Adel, and it's quite an important one, because as we heard earlier from Ali Dalhoul from Microsoft earlier in his keynote, that 49% of people that were surveyed are afraid that they're going to lose their jobs, and that has been, quite a theme throughout the day here today as well. So what sort of reassurance can you give the industry? And is it a matter of reskilling and upskilling the current staff that you have now? And how are you making sure that your staff are going to be tech savvy for this transformation?
I think there is no doubt there are certain jobs will become redundant and will be no longer fit for purpose or cannot be supported. We as an organization need to accept that, but we need to, at the same time, work on upskilling our workforce for a better, more rewarding jobs. There are ways and means to do that. We can just leave the staff as they are, and then later on, a couple of years ago, you say, okay, you're no longer required because you cannot do this job, because we have no choice other than to improve ourselves. And to improve ourselves, we need to address the upskilling and requalifying our employees. There are 4 pillars I would just like to close with, and that we need to think of in any companies. One is the customer, staffing, the liability or responsibility we have toward the community, and the performance of the airlines or any company. The 4 items link to each other, and you cannot put priority on one without the others. If you do this together, you will be successful. That's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Sadly, we have run out of time. No time for our wrap-up, but a captivating session there. There really is no shortage of ambition. We cannot thank you enough for joining us and sharing so openly with us here today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our panel.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.